I think that we shouldn't ignore the fact that neurodivergent joy is one of the best things in the world. And
Hello and welcome to Divergent Paths. I'm your host, Dr. Regina McMenomy. I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. And this is a recap of my recent panel at Rose City Comic-Con. I had a group of neurodivergent folk, including my tenacious co-host, Russ Catanach, join me on stage in front of nearly 400 people to talk about Neurospicy Brains, Found Family, and Fandom Oh My. Russ and I recap the con and share some of the prime moments from the panel in this episode. Panelists include Russ and I, Rachel Ferdaszewski, Isabela Oliveira, and Rabbi Davina Bookbinder. The topic of the panel was how fandoms helped us through our late diagnosis and provided a sense of belonging when we didn't really belong anywhere. To read more about the panelists and the con, make sure to sign up for my newsletter at divergentpathsconsulting.com. So stay tuned, and thanks for listening to Divergent Paths.
So I didn't know what to expect.
You didn't know what to expect.
No, I had no idea of what it was going to be like. I've heard about Comic-Con type stuff before.
Right.
And then I go and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. But why was it cool? Well, first of all, the cool costumes. Amazing stuff.
There's amazing costumes to see at Comic-Con for sure.
Yeah. But the more I don't know, the thing that really kept hitting me and impressed me about it was that it's sort of like a safe haven.
Yeah.
It's it's just people are being their truest, sometimes nerdiest, most imaginative selves. And
most
there's
authentic selves. Yes.
Yeah. And there's no judgment. There's no meanness, there's no you go to some activities, right? And it's there's a fight breaking out or people,
or it's cliquey. Right.
Or cliquey, right.
You go to something and I've gone to a couple of entrepreneur meetups and stuff. And if you're not in, you're not in. And I assume that the more I might attend, I might become in.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't start there. And anybody who walks into Comic-Con belongs there. Anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah. Even me, who didn't dress up.
No, you didn't dress up. I didn't dress up either.
I feel like I should have, though. I think next time I need to.
Okay.
Maybe
year.
Not the presentation day.
Yes.
But yeah.
So for the people who are listening.
Right. Send in your requests of what I should dress as.
Right. What should dress. So we went to Rose City Comic-Con, which is what Russ is talking about here.
Yes.
Which is in Portland, Oregon. And he flew up and we did a panel on it was a very long name. What was the name of the panel, Russ?
I liked the name of the panel. I know.
It's Neurospicy Brains, Fandom, and Found Family. Oh my.
You added the oh my, and I think that's what put it over the top.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Your oh my was okay. I was very surprised and very happy with the amount of people in the room.
We had a very impressive turnout of people for this panel.
Yes. Yep. And I was very happy with, there was the one person that sat up close and was just totally had a sign and everything.
Had a sign that was yay.
I need that person at every single thing that I do.
At every event from now on, that person needs to come. So if you're listening to the podcast, please come to all of our events. Ever. You need to fly to San Francisco so you can go to Russ's trivia.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we'll make it happen. So very welcoming crowd, very great presentation. You did a great job putting that together. All I did was ask questions and sort of facilitate things. And when a microphone didn't work, ran out to bring a backup and
one of the the table mics.
Yeah.
Which thankfully were wireless.
Yeah.
These were new. Yeah. These are new this year. In years past, we have been wired. You wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, the crowd mic was not working very well at all. We couldn't hear. And in the recording, I was going through the recording and I'm like, I cannot hear anything from the first two people who asked questions. I don't even know what the questions were.
Right. Yeah. And that's why one of the people that was first was the cheerleader person, and we didn't get that person's name because we don't have it on there because the microphone was
microphone was
yeah. But the overall show, fantastic. Everything was great. The presentation, great, and we have some clips for those that couldn't make it. So, one of the first questions I asked, and we'll get into, and you can maybe talk about some of the panelists as we go here and give a little backstory.
A little bit about them, sure.
But the first question I asked was, growing up, was there a moment when you realized you weren't playing the same game as everyone else? What did that feel like? And Rachel, one of the panelists, said this.
This question made me realize, we have this saying in my family, it's don't ask your family if something is normal. Because they will tell you yes, and it's absolutely not going to be normal. So my family did this very good job unknowingly of making me feel like everything that I did was completely normal. So I did not know that I was playing a totally different game until I was in middle school, which is possibly the worst period of time in which to find that out. And when I read this question, because we got the question the other time when I read this question, the first thing that came into my mind was that I remember this exact moment when I was in middle school and I was wearing this very flowy dress, and I had decided to wear these pink socks with saltwater sandals because I had seen other people wearing socks with their Birkenstocks, and that was not a thing.
So Rachel is one of my closest friends. So just to preface that. And I love this story because I loved just the idea of how a lot of times for people who are late diagnosed, their neurodivergence has been normalized by their family, right? Because, it's genetic.
Right.
And so trying to figure out if you're neurodivergent by measuring against your family is probably not something that's going to work out particularly well.
Right. Now, there was a lot of talk of middle school.
There was a lot of talk of middle school.
There was. I think there's 2 more clips, right? Didn't Isabela mention some middle school as well?
She did, yes.
I think it was when I was the kid who carried a book around 24/7 in school and would read during recess and stuff all by myself, and I had kids definitely treat me differently for that until I learned how to teach them swear words in a different language. And then I was like, oh.
I mean, brilliant, right?
Right.
Isabela is a book editor for Queer Stories and owns her own press. And a lot of that actually came out of some of what she talks about in another clip that we'll talk about her talking about being involved in fan fiction. And her interest in writing sort of came from fan fiction. So the idea that, what had marked her as weird was carrying a book around. And then she managed to normalize this or make this, a different or better thing for herself by taking other knowledge that she had, swearing in other languages, and making that social capital, gaining social capital by teaching people how to swear in other languages.
Right. As I think I mentioned there, those are some of the only words I know in other languages.
In other languages, yep.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes. You talked about middle school as well.
I feel like it's become a cliche because we're all saying middle school, but I think it was middle school when I started to realize that I was kind of not on the same track everybody else was on as well. I started paying more attention to how other people behaved at that time. I think when I was in elementary school, and I think at that time, my diagnosis now is combined, so hyperactive and inattentive. But I think I would have presented a lot more inattentive when I was younger. I think my anxiety made me more hyperactive, being undiagnosed for 49 years. But I started paying attention to how people behaved and how people talk to each other. And I mean, clothes and all that becomes kind of a thing just at that age anyway. But that was really when I started to notice that I didn't belong with much of anybody around me.
I met you in high school, so
yeah, you missed the middle school era.
I did. I missed that whole era.
You did, and by the time I met you, I was already solid in, the subculture of being a theater kid and
right,
fitting in with that. Like that was so much of my identity. That was so much of your identity back then too.
It was, yeah.
Like we met at our first job,
but we talked about and recognized that we
yeah.
had so much in common with the theater stuff.
Yep. Exactly.
So was that your first like big fandom thing? I know that's the next question, but and we talked about it a little bit there, but was that your first big like feeling of belonging? Was that theater for you?
Theater was, for sure. Yeah. Theater was the subculture that helped me belong, and where I still have a great sense of belonging being involved in theater and live performances, which technically the panel, I guess, counts as a live performance.
Yeah.
The next question was like, what were the first fandoms? And so that was what I talked about was, my finding theater. And I had danced, like I had performed before high school. I had danced, and I didn't belong as a dancer though. Like I was always kind of an outcast as a dancer too. But finding theater and finding a space where I was just thinking about this morning. It was learning, like really learning how to mask, right? Like learning how to act really does teach you like how to mask, but it also helped me understand my emotions better, because you have to learn how to present the emotion the character's feeling versus what you're feeling. Right.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny when you get to know a character's emotion or how to portray a character's emotion, and it's like, oh wait, I feel that way sometimes.
Exactly.
And you recognize it in yourself. Yeah.
Totally. Or you take an experience and then you apply it to, okay, well, this character is feeling this way, so I'm going to think about this thing in my life.
The answer that Rachel gave for what was the first fandom, character, subculture, or world that gave you a sense of belonging or escape. Let's play her answer to that.
And the first thing that made me feel like I belonged with my peers, the first fandom, was the X-Files. And that was like this thing where, we spent time and energy trying to figure stuff out, and we had these theories and we talk about it, and like, people we didn't know also had opinions on this. And so it was a thing where I could connect with people and I didn't have to tone myself down. I could be like excited and invested. And that was like cool somehow.
The X-Files, man. This could be our first mention of our friend Dawn, who was totally into the X-Files, right?
Yes, Dawn was an X-File, PHILE, for a long time, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, what I found interesting, and getting back to like just experiences at the con, was a great thing was you could just walk up to somebody and what you could talk to them about, because they're wearing their fandom like literally like right there, right? Or they have a button on, or they have something on, or they're looking at some particular stand, and you have a nice little conversation starter like right away. That was like really cool to me.
Yeah. That's one of the best parts of it is, knowing that you know people, right? And I firmly believe, even though I did not manage to get Russ to buy anything, his daughter was with him on this trip, and we were both trying to find something for him to buy. And I think we got him close maybe a couple of times, but he didn't actually take the plunge into getting anything. So
Right. Well, I bought some pizza and a drink and enjoyed fantastic food in Portland, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, if the con isn't enough reason to go, the food is.
Portland restaurants are pretty outstanding, I gotta say.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so I could probably nerd out on Portland just because I love the place, but we won't do that. Okay, so the third question. So this one. How does fandom help you cope with perfectionism, burnout, or the pressure to fit in? Now, I didn't say this. I'm gonna go ahead and say my answer to that.
Okay.
Is that when I am not like when stuff is not going right, when I'm not feeling like 100%, when I'm stressed out, when I'm upset or whatever it is. Going and watching like old Johnny Carson reruns, or watching like something about Disneyland parks, or watching like even just watching literally the movie Back to the Future, all of those things make me feel better. It's like my little awesome way of escape, just by watching those things and just by taking me back to those times. I don't know if it's nostalgia or what, but it's there's something there that just like pulls me in, and I enjoy it. And it was so nice to hear a mention of Back to the Future on the panel. I don't know if I've got that exact clip, but Davina had mentioned that. Yeah.
Davina listed that as one of her first fandoms. Was Back to the Future, and I think she said something like she'd watched it like 200 or 300 times.
Yeah. There was a mention of hundreds of times.
Yes, hundreds of times.
Yeah,
so,
I could possibly compete with that, but we do have another answer from Davina though. Let's go to that.
I think part of it is, aside from the lessons that are baked into a lot of fandoms in terms of like not being a perfectionist, not burning out, focusing on self-care, a lot of lessons that you see very obviously in She-Ra and in Owl House. I think the support in fandom communities, also theater, same, in like that group where we know that we don't like fit in, and so we're all going to hold each other up and make sure that we take care of each other because the outside world doesn't.
I thought that was a particularly important point to make about how important fandom is to neurodivergent folk and folk who just don't really fit in general. Like, not just the lessons that we take away from our fandoms, because a lot of us mentioned like Star Trek and Star Wars being among the first, fandoms that we belong to. So not just like, and those are very heavy on the morality stories and tales and etc. Like, there is a lesson to be learned from pretty much every Star Trek episode. And aside from that, like the idea that you have this baked in community that sees you as you are and accepts you as you are and is willing to hold you up and support you, I think is really, really the thing that made this the topic that I wanted to put together for the panel.
Yeah, and I think the questions that you designed, and I mean, okay, so you did the questions, you did the panel, you did you did the whole thing. Like I showed up and asked some questions.
Yes,
and held
everybody else got to show up. I got to orchestrate everything.
Exactly. But you did a fantastic job with that, because I feel like the we learned so much. The people in the audience were like laughing, clapping, and paying attention. And the other thing is, like, I think we had 3 people leave. Like that was it. Out of the whole thing. Nobody. Like everybody stayed till the end, which was just fantastic.
Yeah, everybody stayed until the end. Yeah, there are competing panels that go on at the same time. So like there are
competing. We were competing against the Goonies.
We were up against the Goonies. So the fact that we practically filled a room that sat almost 400 people when
Right.
the Goonies panel was going on, I think is pretty significant as well. So we should like pat ourselves on the back for that.
Exactly.
And it's not only for me that not many people left, because it's true, not many people did leave. But how quiet everybody is. Like he's a 400 people, almost 400 people, right? It was probably not quite 400, it's probably like 350, 325, 350, I'd guess, somewhere in there. But that many people to sit in a conference center room with high ceilings and thin walls and be as quiet as you can hear in these clips. You're not hearing a lot of background noise because people weren't talking. People were so attentive to what we were saying. And that was one of the other things that I thought was, really amazing.
Yeah. Everybody was like, I mean, I was sitting there, of course, with thinking about editing later, thinking about the podcast, thinking about content. And I so bad wanted to ask so many follow-up questions.
Right.
It was, so I kept reaching for the iPad, writing stuff down just in case I could ask a question.
We had, and we only have an hour, and we did leave time for questions at the end for people to make comments and, share their thoughts too. So it does cut into what time we have, but yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so jumping back to that last question, we actually had one more answer about the coping and coping with perfectionism, burnout, and pressure. That was Isabela that gave this next answer.
Doubt it that you like the thing you like, right? Put something out there, and someone will come out of the woodwork and be like, "Oh my god, this is my favorite thing. No one ever writes for this thing. I love it." And maybe they'll become your like beta reader or something. But there's this thing in fandom called two cakes, and if you're ever like, oh, I have no know if I should put this thing out there, there will be someone who'll be like, it's basically a little comic, and like you're just stressing about this thing, and then the person who's like enjoying your fan work or whatever is just like, oh shoot. I just have two cakes now. This is awesome.
Yeah, I really loved. For anybody who doesn't know, like the definition of a toothache in fanfic or in fandom is like it's just so sweet that you just absolutely it gives you a toothache, right? So it gives you a toothache. So that's the genesis of part of what they were saying there is, if you've ever doubted that you are valid and your perspective on your fandom is valid, she's saying, they are saying, and my apologies as when they listen to this, my deep apologies for constantly using the wrong pronouns. I am still retraining my brain on this one. So my apologies. That Isabela is saying here is how important it is to create in your fandom, and how when you create in your fandom, you can find an even deeper connection. And that's one of the ways, it can help you cope with perfectionism and burnout. Like if you're afraid to put something out because you think it needs to be perfect, put your draft out and see how many people love it. Like, that is definitely something, because you'll probably get a mixed bag of things, but you'll probably give a couple people a toothache.
I love the toothache term. I had not heard that before. Yeah. And I was sort of wondering about that at the con. So you answered a lingering question for me.
Lingering question for you.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
All right. So I was excited to hear, and this is something that I did not really know too much. I mean, I feel like I know a lot about you, but I didn't know the deep love for Star Wars.
You didn't?
I didn't know it was that deep.
It's pretty deep.
Okay.
It's pretty deep.
I mean, I know you have some Star Wars artwork. I know you like Star Wars. I didn't know that it was as deep as it was. I actually asked, looking back now with the language of ADHD, autism, and other neurodivergent identities, how has your understanding of those fandom experiences changed? And let's hear your take on this with a little Star Wars mention.
The importance and the gravity of fandom. So I didn't tell this in the initial story, but my first fandom would have been Star Wars. And when I was in elementary school, we used to play Star Wars out on the, out of recess. And we would act through the scenes, and, we would do things. We had the dialogue memorized, and this is what we did. And we did this for at least an entire year of elementary school. Again, I don't think it helped me belong in terms of like the greater population in grade school, but in the friends that I was doing this with, it did give us this deep gratification that we were able to act this out and play with this with each other. And I think that is what was important about it. Like, it was great that it was Star Wars, and I'm not necessarily mad at the fandom, because there are other fandoms from other times in my life I don't talk about anymore. But, having that connection and having it, like, I can still think about, like, what it was like to be on the playground and say, aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper, when it was the day I got to play Princess Leia, right? Like that.
Yeah, you had to have loved that moment.
I did. I wanted to do a Chewbacca impression eventually, or R2D2. Like,
right?
It would have been fun. It would be fun. I think, the thing we need to add next year is we need to add some like sound effects and music.
Right.
Or under that story, I'm playing the Star Wars thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It can be playing dun dun dun.
Exactly.
Dun 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 dun.
Fantastic.
Which I walked to at my graduation from UC Santa Cruz.
Right. Don't they? That's the thing there, right? Like, don't they do that every year, or is that a?
They do that every year, yeah. At least at the college that I graduated from, that's what they all walked to.
Love
our
that.
joint college graduation between Stevenson and what was the other? I can't remember the other college's name now. But anyway, yeah, that was our graduation procession. Nice. Was the Darth Vader theme.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had said something earlier in the podcast where, like, it's a great conversation starter when you know. Like, knowing that you like Star Wars, somebody could come up to you and say something about Star Wars. Like, I met somebody at the con who clearly was a Muppets fan.
A lot of Muppets this year,
and also a Disney fan. Like, it was like just by the pins that were worn. Yep. I introduced myself. I talked to him for a minute, and then said something like, aren't you upset that they're closing like the Muppets, 3D vision at, or are you upset that they're closing the Muppets 3D vision thing at Disney World? And is like he totally lit up. He's like, this? Like that type of thing. Like, it was so cool that, I was able to like reference something that, I know that's kind of hot in the news, and it is annoying that they're getting rid of that, because come on, Muppets. Right. I've never been to Disney World, and whatever, but come on. I wouldn't mind seeing that someday. But it was so cool to just be able to bring that up and talk about that. But I think one of the points, like Rachel was making, was that it's a part of their identity, not their full identity. Let's play that clip.
Okay to have this be a part of my identity without it defining me. It's part of that collection that makes me who I am, not like, there are pieces of our identity that are just innate, and then there are pieces of our identity that we choose. And so, there's things about you that I identify as this because it's who I am in the core of me. And then there are pieces where you're like, well, I'm a runner, right? That's part of my identity because I run. Well, I don't run now. So now I'm not a runner, and that doesn't mean I'm a different person, right? And it's the same with with the fandoms, right? Like, I can still be a Trekkie without having that be my favorite thing to talk about.
But you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And this is the place to talk about it. Totally. But like, yeah, that was the big, takeaway from that, is that these don't have to be things that define you, because our identities are fluid, right? Identity is fluid. Things change. Your perception of yourself changes. Your perception of the world changes. Like I had mentioned in my clip that, there are fandoms that I no longer want to participate in because the creators of those fandoms are trash. And, that was hard. And I had to mourn that whole process, and I had to let go of a portion of what I had loved because, this person who created it was not somebody I could support anymore. And if it is something that you are wrapped up in being part of your identity, then that is crushing.
Right.
But we can take things and they can come and go.
Right. Well, I think, I mean, the amount of like diversity there at the con, and the like,
yes,
diversity both in, people, who they are, what whatever, right? Like there's diversity there, but also like what their fandom was.
Yeah.
I mean, like thousands of people like gathered together. You said it was like 20,000 people or something.
Yep, like 20,000 people.
So yep. 20,000 people just kind of gathered together, not under the same flag of a particular fandom,
right?
But like just this sort of flag of enthusiasm for something. Yes. Yeah. Like that just, I don't know. It was something that's like just, I think I've said it the same message like 3 different ways, but it just really, really hit me, It was,
I mean, and that's why this is where I found my people. Like there's part of me that is both simultaneously thrilled and sad that Rose City Comic Con is only one weekend a year.
Right.
And I go to other cons, and not all cons have the same feel. Rose City has a very personal, feeling to me because it is my hometown, convention. Yeah. This is the con in my field. Town, my home field, con. But it also is independently owned. Like there's one big company that owns some of the bigger cons, and they are not as friendly to small content producers like me. And I used to go to a different con that's a little farther away from me. And we used to rent a table with a bunch of podcasters, and we used to make live content at the con all weekend long. And we used to interview people making comic books and cosplayers, etc. And then we just got priced out of it to the point where, they didn't make space for that anymore. And Rose City Comic Con, isn't a cheap endeavor if you are going to attend. Right. Cons are never cheap because, I mean, it's an expo floor full of like things that you love.
Totally.
And just take an 11-year-old, because let me tell you, that's going to hit your pocketbook. But, that feeling, that overwhelming feeling of yes, you belong here is second to none.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So we're trying to give a feel of not only what it was like to be there, but also to be at our panel. And there's one more quote that we should throw out there from Davina that is an answer to the last question.
I think for me, it helped to let go of a lot of shame of holding on to and being a part of various fandoms or being into stuff. The trope of the adult geek, comic book guy from The Simpsons, of like this idea that once you get to a certain age, you're not allowed to like a lot of these things, or you're not allowed to like them in a certain way. Now looking back and realizing that, that's not about maturity, and it's not about growing up. That's about a neurotypical, like normative way of enforcing things on a society and on people. Mm-hmm. Where, I can love comic books as a 39-year-old, and it doesn't make me any more or less mature.
Right, because there is a lot of bias around, having to feel like you need to grow up at a certain point. So Davina is Rabbi Davina Bookbinder, and she is just an amazing person. She's a rabbi and a sex educator, and like has so many like varied pieces of her identity, kind of mixed into her, well, not mixed in, but like as part of her life. Right. And I love the idea that fandom can help release shame. Like I've talked a lot about shame in previous episodes as one of the things that kind of stymies us, especially when we're late diagnosed. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that we can let go of all that. And I do think I want to like pull up one more quote for us, but talk a little bit about that while I find where it is.
Wow, you've assigned me. I don't have notes. No,
I know, right?
Actually, though, really, though, it is like it feels like the like shame sort of like thrives in like the isolation as well, right? When you only think it's you that likes this, and then the second you see somebody else that's like, you know, enjoying the same thing, the character, the world, the whatever,
right?
Like all of a sudden, you know, like it's not too weird, you know, that you were, you know, it's not weird like you were thinking it was. It's just that, you know, it's the shame going away. I think that's cool. And then also that this sort of like it flips the script on what we have been told growing up, that you're going to grow out of this, right? It's just
right, exactly.
You're really
that you're going to let this go. That this doesn't have to be part of who you are.
That love can be sort of a sense of pride for you, right? Like, oh, I love this, and it's also just like I said, like a great conversation piece, a great way of starting a conversation. Like it's so cool. Okay, well, did you find that clip?
I think so. I'm hoping that it's the right
so
place.
good at this. You should be editing the podcast. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, this was the last question. That was the only question I didn't give the panelists ahead of time, which was what one piece of advice would you give to anyone in the audience here today who feels like they still don't belong?
The thing I would say, because belonging and being authentic has already been expressed, is I would let you know that finding your people might take a long time. And the longer it takes for you to embrace your authentic self, the longer it's going to take for you to find your real people. So go forth and be as much of yourself as often as you can so that you can find your real people sooner rather than later.
When you said that, it made me think too, like, and sometimes you find those people and you don't realize it, or they don't, you know, or like they go in and out of your life, or, you know, whatever it is. And I don't know how well I said this there, because I was also thinking about, I need to ask questions and I need to do this and I need to do that. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my mind as I was doing this. But, you know, it feels like sometimes once you do find the right people, like, even if, you know, distance becomes a factor or something else, you know, like gets in the way of that time, you know, work, kids, distance, life, then if they're the right people, they come back too.
Right.
You know, and that's another way of sort of realizing, like, you're with the right people, and the people that just make you feel all right. The people that make you feel accepted, where you don't have to put on a mask with them. Yep. You don't have to be somebody different. You can just be yourself.
Like, and I think too that, like, you know, I was talking about what, you know, needing to be able to find your real people. And I think in the process of unmasking, I don't want to over exaggerate this, but it is kind of a psychologically violent thing to do. If you have been masking for most of your life, to remove it and to put yourself, your authentic self, out, it's a lot more vulnerable and it's a lot more risky. And when you're used to hiding, being able to come out and be seen is hard. And the people who belong in your life may leave, and some of them may come back. And when maybe they process and they get to their point where they understand, you know, that they were masking, or that they were removing themselves, or that they were performing in some way. And I think those are really important things to hold on to, that, you know, again, maybe part of what the main theme for this panel is how fluid our identity is. and how the people who love you for your authentic self, no matter where you find them, no matter when you find them, will love that authentic self in what form you are able to present it. It really is a remarkable thing to realize just how many people want to talk about their neurodivergent lives. It's such an honor to be able to present a panel like this and share our stories and hear the stories from the crowd. The best way to normalize these vibrant and exceptional lives we live are to tell our stories. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter on the website. You'll find the link in the show notes so we can keep these conversations going. Until next time, enjoy your neurodivergent fandom.